Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Midweek program at the J.C. Ralston Arboretum. My name is Blake, and I'm the Education Assistant here at the Arboretum, and today we are in the Japanese garden because it is a peaceful, serene, and beautiful location. And today we are talking about mental health and horticulture. We've got Greg Page, our Director of Horticulture here, and off camera we have Ann Church, who happens to be Greg's wife, and she is a certified clinical mental health counselor. We are going to be talking about plants and horticulture and all the ways they can make you feel good just because of the inextricable link between wellness and nature. Alrighty. And with the announcements out of the way, I think we can pass things over to Greg and Ann to have a wonderful little discussion about plants and mental health.
Excellent. Well, thanks everybody for joining in. We initially had a big powwow several weeks ago to kind of get some things in front of us to figure out topics to talk about. And as Blake alluded, this is a topic that is important to us because of the world that we live in now, and mental health and well-being is an important part of navigating the world. And I'm very lucky to know somebody that lives very close to me who just so happens to have a little bit of experience in that realm of the world. I've been lucky to work around plants and in nature my entire life, and I think I certainly have benefited from it over the years. I've got colleagues that work in hort therapy and other sections of the garden, and I've seen the benefits of that as well. And also, as Blake alluded, and what we're going to talk about here in a minute when I stop rambling, there's a lot of research out about the importance of being in nature and around plants, and just something that simple can really change your outlook and appeal on things. So we're going to be kind of loosey-goosey. We work well together. We can communicate well together, and we hope that some of this knowledge and experience can transfer to you. And correct me if I'm wrong, Blake, but we'll talk and we'll have time for questions at the end, because we do like to get that feedback and hope that we've reached some of you with this. And finally, before we dive into it, strongly encourage you to tap into the things that Blake mentioned. We're very lucky to have those options to offer to people, and a lot of work has gone into them, and they're going to be really, really good programs. So please come join us. So I've rambled a good bit. We kind of planned this out last night, and how would you like to dive into this very, very deep topic?
Well, I think it's helpful to sort of note that we're specifically focusing on mental health, or I like to think mental wellness. To me, it's just a part of overall wellness, your physical and mental health. And we know moving in nature and moving in general really keeps you well, but there's some really cool things about, this garden in particular, but what happens when people and plants interact that really supports well-being. Thinking about trees, for example, one of the things that has been studied, not just here, but Japan, there are lots and lots of studies on this, that there are particular oils in trees that have an anti-inflammatory effect on human beings, and that lowers cardiovascular disease risk, diabetes, other forms of inflammation that impact wellness. And one of the things we definitely know about is that for people who can spend 120 minutes in nature, so that maybe is one visit here to the garden, doing a forest bathing session, or maybe it's a couple of visits. Maybe you're coming out and volunteering in one of the amazing gardens. Maybe it's the Asian Valley, maybe it's the Rose Garden, maybe it's the Children's Garden if it's your thing, or the Rose Garden. I love the Rose Garden. A couple times a week, getting outside, that interaction with plants and nature is really more than just going to help your physical well-being. It's actually going to positively impact your overall mental wellness. And what does that really mean when we talk about it? Well, you're going to think better. So there are studies that tell us really straightforwardly that people that interact with nature and plants on a regular basis, and like I said, that 120-minute mark seems to be a key thing. So 150 for cardiovascular exercise, 120 for nature engagement. You could do both right here. You cognitively are going to perform better. You're going to think better. You're going to preserve your mental function. So that puts you in a really good spot in terms of dementia and Alzheimer's and brain health in general. Well, okay, that's great. What else? What else has to do with mental wellness? Well, one of the things I think you guys are probably pretty familiar with, and most of us are, is we all kind of feel anxious about certain things, and we all feel sad or depressed about things. And it's when those feelings become distressful or pervasive that we start to talk about the need for intervention. And along the way towards real distress and needing real clinical help, there are a lot of places in between where we can do things to sort of like prevent a cold, to help us get better before we need penicillin. Like, this is what I say. And so one of the things that we know helps is being able to, for example, with anxiety. Anxiety is generally over worrying or concern about past events or future events. So if we can bring ourselves to the present, one of the things that happens is our cortisol reduces, our blood pressure goes down, and our heart rate decreases, and we feel overall a sense of well-being. And one of the great things to do that is to be in nature, because the way our brain turns off its fight or flight response, guess how it does it, Greg? Through our 5 senses. And even as we sit here, we could look at 5 different plants. We could look at 5 different colors of green on the same plant. We could listen to 4 different kinds of sounds. I could actually pick out 4 different birds.
Yeah.
And as we kind of go through those, and we were talking about smelling organic matter and pollen and flowers earlier, as we go through those sensory cues, those are ancient cues that tell our brain, the part of our brain that's automatic, that turns on fight or flight, that we're safe. So the garden is a way for us, and being in nature is a way for us to remind our ancient old fight or flight system that we're really safe. We may be really worried about our boss and the last project we did, or an upcoming test, or a friend or family member that's sick, or ourselves in some way. And sometimes we're worried about what will happen or what might have happened or how we did things or didn't do things. But if we can, on a regular basis, return to the present, which is called mindfulness, right? Through our senses, then we generally have a way of controlling that level of anxiety that we often feel controlled by. Does that make some sense? Yeah. Actually, I'm not going to say which school because it might be in the triangle. Uh-oh.
This was going to come up.
But they teach their incoming first-year students mindfulness-based stress reduction. And the course was designed around the most minimal amount of time to spend, 10 minutes a day, in a mindfulness-based activity that is really not about looking at your belly button and getting deep with the universe, which if you do, great. I mean, Greg, I'm all for that. But it's really about, like, how do I bring myself back to those 5 senses, to my body, to my breath? And one of the really cool things is that this garden and plants, even if you're taking care of your cactus in your dorm room, or like me, I know I might be married to a plantsman, but I can kill a plant faster than You know this is true.
She's pretty good
I'm
at
pretty
that.
good at it.
She's pretty good at that.
Yeah. But even if you're just concentrating on trying to breathe life into the plant you're killing, this is me, you can get out of your head and out of yourself and have an interest in something else that's living and breathing. And often when we're in distress, that act is really beneficial. There's so many facts and figures.
It's all relevant stuff, and so many.
Yeah.
It's a topic that there's a certain amount of taboo associated with some of it, but we're just not privy to a lot of the research that's been done. So the facts are good. Throw some facts out there.
I think I just did throw some facts down.
You did.
But, one of the things that city planners often think about, and I think Raleigh has done an excellent job with this, is preserving green spaces.
Yes.
Because we know, particularly for children who have access to green spaces, or there's a correlation between success in school, lessens gang activity, pro-social activities. It allows for, other activities to be done in those areas. Community gardens, another thing.
Mm-hmm.
I was amazed actually at how many community gardens are in downtown Raleigh. We recently relocated back here, and Raleigh has really done an excellent job of that. It also creates community. I think about all the volunteers that come to this garden, and one of the things I think we all have learned, and one of the great things that being here at this garden or being in a hiking club at Umstead or getting outside provides is connection to each other. And we all really miss that. I missed that during COVID, but I also missed that moving here. And I think about all the students that, come back to Raleigh and relocate to Raleigh for undergrad and grad school. And before they've had a chance to make friends and do stuff, kind of getting out in nature. In fact, that's how I met Greg. I met him hiking.
It's true.
Getting out in nature is a way to connect to yourself, but also here through so many different volunteer activities, doing something good for the community. So those are a couple things. Other facts and figures, you might not think this is a big deal, but a lot of people don't get enough vitamin D. Okay? Yeah. Just sitting out here for 30 minutes talking to you. Now, I'll tell my dermatologist I have sunscreen on, but I don't have it on my legs. And getting sunlight allows you your body to produce, it's necessary, unless you supplement, it's a necessary component of producing vitamin D. And vitamin D is linked to mental health and wellness and a number of things. So that's a fact and figure for you. But just even if, like during your day, I know we're all busy and a lot of people work inside. I have an executive I work with, and they work on a 5-5-50 schedule. And they're always trying to squeeze more time out of their day, but now they're really considering, how can I be more energetic in the time I have? So this is a way to be mentally alert, cognitively alert, work at your highest optimum level. That's the train. It comes by, it will keep going. But so basically, the executive works for a 50-minute stretch on something, gets up and moves for 5 minutes, so that might be going for a walk. In an ideal world, they'll go for a walk, and then they'll spend 5 minutes either...
It's okay.
It's all right.
Yeah.
They'll spend 5 minutes either outside, walking outside, or looking outside their window and watching the trees, specifically concentrating on that. And that settles them, and it actually gives their brain a break so that they are refreshed and energetic in the next cycle of work, if that makes any sense.
It does. We are all, guilty is the wrong word, but if I'm working on something inside, I have to take time to get up and go outside. I see this young man walking around the garden a lot, which is good. You have to do that just to step away from the artificial world and reconnect, and it helps you focus when you get back, and lots of other things. Bouncing around a little bit here, you triggered some thoughts in my mind talking about green space and the importance of that. Having moved here from another city in North Carolina, where there wasn't as much attention paid to that, it's a huge important thing for us that we've got those green spaces to go to. It's helped us reconnect personally, and it gives us the opportunity to explore these new areas and see all that stuff. And it's nice that Raleigh has paid a lot of attention to that. I've got a very good friend of mine, Andrew Bunting, who works for Pennsylvania Hort Society, and they've got years of research that shows that the community gardens that are in place throughout the city, the greening of abandoned lots, has really tied neighborhoods together. It's lowered stress to residents that live in those areas. It's reduced crime in a lot of areas, in some cases 25 to 30%. And there's a lot of research that's been done to kind of highlight that stuff, and in other big cities too, like Chicago and other places. So, as we've mentioned earlier, there's a lot of hard science and research behind a lot of this stuff.
Yeah. And sometimes I think we overlook just the simple joys of being in the garden and play. That, like, the first note I made to myself was go play outside. I come to this garden and I never cease to be amazed at something. You're going to have to say the name of the flower, the naked ladies that we came upon.
Like Lycoris.
Lycoris. They're called naked ladies because they come out. They don't have leaves. Okay, we're keeping it PG.
She's good. She just learned that. She's remembered it.
I'm trying to remember. But that's one of the things that people who are depressed or anxious, they lose access to joy. And being able to reconnect with really simple joys and really low bar to entry joys, that's really important. And I think important as we age, but important at all sorts of levels. And if you ever have the chance to come to this garden and see kids, you'll see what I'm talking about. But we all still have that sense of wonder inside us, like, wow. And because of the depth and breadth of plant material in the garden, there's just, it's limitless. I mean,
the diversity and all things in life, diversity is such a huge important thing. And that's one of the benefits of being here is, there's history here, which I like with JC. There's the ties to the university, and the garden that was created kind of on that backbone has afforded all these different levels of succession of bloom and different time frames for things. Blake said something many of these ago about being here at different times of the day and just the changes in light. So that's something to be taken and to think about when you're interacting with nature, is even if you go back to the same places, making your brain kind of look for things that are different. And you don't have to put a lot of energy into it. It's all kind of right there in front of you. As I sit here and look back into the Lath House, there's stuff blooming that I didn't notice when I walked through here last week. And that's kind of the beauty of being here all the time and getting to see that. You totally take it for granted. But, getting back to, again, bouncing around with my attention issue here, it's amazing. We just finished up all the children's groups here, and I was lucky to participate and do some tours and some interactions with those groups, with Elizabeth and her folks. But it's always nice to see them out and engage with nature, and we do a really good job of of making that happen here.
Yeah. And kind of like, wandering our way back to, the mental health and how can, what can we do with the garden, with our natural spots, our green spaces? How can we utilize them to support our overall wellness? I think, I'm happy to talk about some ideas if it's helpful. If people are tuning in thinking, okay, great, it's a garden. What am I supposed to do with it? So I'm really excited about the self-guided meditation, walking meditation that the garden's developing. I think that's a really, if you're maybe you're thinking of experimenting, trying out some mindfulness-based kind of activities. That's kind of a low bar to entry. You don't have to do any confusing dance steps. No one's observing you. You can kind of come do it and see what works for you and play around with it. I think forest bathing is really cool. It really began in Japan when there was a real health crisis after the last recession, the big recession in Japan. And there was a real effort to get people outside and engaged in nature in a really planful, mindful way. And from what I understand, it's not strenuous. So if you're worried, I don't know if I can do that. I don't know if I can physically do that. The idea is that it's very slow. It's very mindful. It's very easy paced so that you can take all the time you need to slow down and see and hear. Because everything in our kind of modern world is fast, fast, fast. This is sort of the opposite of that. You can do a 5 senses exercise. You can come sit on one of the beautiful benches here in the Asian gardens, the Japanese garden, the Lath house, wherever, and just check in. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. With all your senses in any order, what you see, hear, taste, touch, smell. You could look for a shape. I love doing that with kids especially, but you could look for different shapes because, plants have sacred geometry. You can look at look for circles, look for, varying shapes, stars, whatever you want to look at. Is that helpful to hear?
No, that's good. That's good. And it is very easy and at your own pace. And there's a lot. I had some visitors this morning from the Netherlands and was walking through the Arboretum with them. And one of the things that they pointed out and that I always notice too is there's lots of garden rooms and little nooks and crannies. We're 10.5 acres, but it's 10.5 mighty acres. And there's lots of places, lots of benches, lots of opportunity to go someplace and just take that time to do that. There's no end to that. And even when the garden has a lot of people in it, when the train's going by, when the construction noise is happening and they're zipping up and down Barrel Road, all that stuff kind of melts away when you're in some of these areas.
Yeah, and
we do this a lot over by the crepe myrtles in that little area behind the gathering lawn, and it's right up against Barrel Road, but all that kind of melts away when you're there doing things.
Yeah, and we think about mindfulness as being quiet and going inward, but I also think of it as going outward. Like if you want to bring a sketch pad and sketch for 20 minutes or a journal and write for 20 minutes and set a timer on your watch and free write. Often when we're mulling over something in our head that we call it perseverating. That's a big technical term for thinking about it a lot. The same thing over and over. And if you think about it in relation to everything else, we call that ruminating. Those are two big words. Everybody can take them and put them in their pockets. But sometimes we get stuck in that and we keep looking for a solution. Sometimes there aren't solutions to things in life, right? Sometimes you just have to accept certain things. And learning either to accept it or sometimes you get an aha when you quiet down and you can listen to yourself. Maybe not everybody, your mom, your dad, your friends, everybody giving you advice, but you can listen to your own internal wisdom in a place like this. Then you know how to proceed in a way that feels really centered, authentic, and true. And, that's to me what nature asks of us. Like I can come in with all my pretty hair and makeup, but if it's a hot southern day, I'm melting, right? So there's some essential truth that we have to tell ourselves being out here.
Yeah. What else? That's 30 hard minutes of talk.
Yeah.
Are we in a place for questions, or do you want to keep going?
We don't have too many questions right now in the chat, but I mean, that's okay. This has been wonderful. If there's anything else you guys would like to talk about.
Boy, I've talked too much.
No.
I'm generally somebody who listens, so.
I don't know about that one.
Well, not to you, but to other people.
That's true. I mean, that is your job. That is your job. No, it's again, very lucky to work in a place where I'm surrounded by nature, a good community of people that are interested in the same thing, people that are wanting to learn, and the volunteers that are here, the cherry on top of working with students. And one of them just zipped through here really quickly. Michael came through, not sure where he was heading to, but all that stuff has been good for my mental health, to be in an environment where we get to do these sorts of things. And I certainly hope, and it's something that I've always wanted to do in a garden that I've worked at. And it's exciting that we're kind of embracing that and are going to participate in that more. And we're always talking on how can we get more students here to take advantage of being here and take some of the stresses out of their lives. And if we're really lucky, get some for internships and student workers and that kind of stuff to experience working in a garden.
And sometimes if you're in a place where you're having a difficult time caring for yourself, starting to care for a plant or an animal, but really, I think of here, like watching a plant, seeing it grow and change, being connected to the change in season, that can reconnect you to yourself, to a sense of being a part of the cycle of life. And it's a very hopeful, joyous thing.
Yeah.
Full of little joys and surprises, like the rain we're getting.
Yeah, we will take every drop. We will take every drop, as long as it doesn't mess with the camera or the computer.
Yeah.
For sure. For the time being, I think we are okay. I would like to ask, here's one question we have. Are you aware of any data that supports therapeutic horticulture for specific disorders such as addictions?
Yeah, I would need to, I'm sure it exists, and I would need to provide that at a later date. I know there are several inpatient treatment programs that have horticultural therapy as a part of their program, along with kind of traditional group and individual therapy. They do, horticultural therapy for sure. And usually it's in line with mindfulness teaching. It's about putting your focus where you want to put your focus when it comes to addiction.
Sure. Carolyn's asking if you could elaborate on the difference between ruminating and perseverating. Perseverating.
Well, hello, Carolyn. Okay, so ruminating, and again, this is my understanding of it. When I perseverate on something, it's almost like I can't stop thinking about one single thing. If I had only, made my bed this morning, the whole day would have gone better. I just can't, and I'm talking about it to everybody. I can't stop thinking about it. I'm just not going to let that go. Ruminating, might expand that idea of all the different possibilities of why I didn't make the bed and all the different things that could have happened and might happen in the future because I didn't make the bed. I'm just picking kind of a random, example of that. I hope that helps. Kind of perseverating is almost like a repetitive one thing. You jump off. When you ruminate, it's sort of like daydreaming in the negative, if that helps.
That's a good analogy.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah. Someone's asking, could you please differentiate between therapeutic horticulture and horticultural therapy?
I wouldn't differentiate. I wouldn't. I would consider.
Yeah, there's horticultural therapy specific titles. Some gardens have horticultural therapists where they work with people with.
They're trained,
right?
And it's sort of like an art therapist, somebody who's specifically trained to utilize plant materials in a therapeutic capacity as a tool to help and assist in meeting treatment goals or outcome goals.
A lot of times people that have physical disabilities, that can be tied into it as well.
As an occupational
thing.
Animal assisted therapies are sort of a different kind of grouping of that, but they're all sort of, they require a certain kind of specialized training.
Okie dokie. This one's not really a question, but somebody had a nice comment that I liked. They said, if we visit the same exact spot at different times of the day and evening, you will experience a totally different assessment. Shadows, clouds, light, and even sounds and critters. And I like that. I like how you've kind of latched on to my idea that you come out in the garden and it's always different at different times of day.
Absolutely.
Like, I work here and every time I'm in the garden, it's always different. Like the plants are growing. And
the thing is our brain delights in the new and novel.
Yeah.
And so every time you come, it's new and novel. And we really do delight in that.
For sure. And it really helps that this garden is free so that there's no barrier to entry whatsoever. It's just how much time are you willing to dedicate to it and spend with it?
Well, not quite free. There are people who donate.
True. That's fair. And we are greatly appreciative.
But it's free to come visit and do.
Okay. Somebody asked, they asked for, I guess, your contact information. Do you have like a practice somewhere or?
I do. And I would refer people to my Psychology Today profile. You can just do Ann Church and you'll find me. Also, that's a good resource for you if you're looking for a couples therapist or, some people prefer to work with women. Some people want somebody who's LGBTQ plus IAA. So that's a great resource. If you have insurance, I know not everybody does, you can look at the lists through your insurer. Those are some things to consider.
And there's a lot of, an email just went out about the mental health day next week. And there's a lot of resources on that are specific to the university, but anybody that kind of lives in this area too. So there's a lot of that information, and maybe we can put a link on the...
to resources.
Yeah, for sure. And I will say that if you find a therapist that you don't like, find another therapist.
Oh, yeah. It's like Match.com.
Yeah.
This is really important. It's the relationship and the trust. And I always tell people that they can break up with me.
Yeah.
That there are other really good therapists. And I usually, it's about fit and it's important. And you got to feel safe and like there's good energy, and you got to feel confident in the training and their approach. So
yeah, absolutely.
And if it's not a fit, a good therapist will refer you.
Absolutely, for sure. Okay, well, I think that is all the time we have for today, and the rain is starting to pick up.
Starting.
So, absolutely. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ann, for being here. This was absolutely wonderful.
Thank you,
we're so grateful.
You're welcome,
that you were...
Greg.
Yeah. And thanks, Greg, I guess, for helping out with this. I mean, you know, whatever. I'm kidding. Greg is wonderful, and we are so grateful for him. I hope you guys, thank you everybody for tuning in today. We will be back next week at 3 o'clock. We will be going deeper in the garden, talking big honking trees.
That's right.
So that will be splendid. I hope I will see you all next week. Y'all take care.
Thank you.